got me, and but then when I get a big win, I call her back up on the phone, and we get back together again. So we had this 6-year period back and forth. Finally, at the age of 28, I had an opportunity, along with 2 other fellows, to open up a business out in California. So I quit the job I had here. I was in a sales position, so were the other 2 people, and we brought a franchise out in California and opened up a business. One of the other fellows was a compulsive gambler like myself. All 3 of us were doing drugs at the time, and all 3 of us were drinking at the time. But with myself and the other fellow that was a gambler like me, we made a pact that we would not gamble until the business started to make money, and then we would reward ourselves with subsequent trips to casinos. So for the first year we went out there and we marketed some new product out in California, and things started to go well, the money started to come in, and then it was time after 1 year. I think I only gambled twice that year, which for me was amazing, because up until then I gambled almost every day. I mean, if 2 cockroaches were going up on the wall, I'd say, which one do you want for $10, So I mean, I was like what they call a dry drunk. I mean, I knew I just had to get this money in, and then we were gonna celebrate. So when the money started coming in, we did make our first trip to Vegas, and with myself and the 2 other fellas, and we went there, and again, similar to the racetrack and to the penny ante game, I had a big win at the casino. Right away at the crab table, I started winning. In fact, things got so good that the casino manager came over and called me over and asked to talk with me, because he said, I'd like to set you up on a line of credit instead of you carrying all this cash around on you. Then he started asking me questions, who I was, where I was from, and what I did for a living. I told him, and he was so intrigued by our business concept that he said, well, does anybody have this for the state of Nevada? And I said, no. And next thing you know, we're out at his house in the middle of the desert in the afternoon. He's thinking about buying a franchise, and we get back to the casino, and he sets me and my other 2 partners up on a line of credit for the casino where we don't have to bring money. And again, there is a Proverbs 14:12, there is a way that seems right unto man, but in the end it leads to death, and that was the kiss of death, getting that line of credit. I did go home a winner that time, but subsequent trips to Vegas just kept, I kept losing and losing, and the losses kept getting heavier and heavier. I was also playing in all-night poker clubs in California. It was legal back then, so I was playing, playing in those games. I was going to the racetrack in the afternoon. I was betting sports. I had 2 bookmakers. I had 17 credit cards maxed out. Then the businesses started failing because we were siphoning off, so much of our work in that. And at the same time, Pat, my wife, gave me an ultimatum because of this relationship. She's living back here in Chicago. I'm out in California. And she said, Jerry, she said, I got to know, I mean, is there a future? Are we going to get married? She had always thought I was going to ask her every Christmas to get married, and I wasn't really thinking along those lines. And to be quite honest with you, Pat is, and today, the most wonderful person I've ever met. And looking back on things, I married her for all the wrong reasons. I just didn't want to lose her. I really look back, and I was so sick into my gambling. I said, if I say no and don't marry her, I don't know if I'll ever get married, So I said, no, that's, I proposed to her. But boy, what a time for us to, get engaged. It was at the height of my gambling. She didn't know a lot of my debt structure, what I was doing. I was secretive about a lot of my gambling. On our honeymoon, we flew to Hawaii. Pat promised that, we wouldn't go on gambling for our honeymoon. And I agreed to it. And after, 5 days in Hawaii, it was one of the 2 states that doesn't have gambling. I started getting a little stir crazy. I think a long story short, I turned a situation where, I tried to call up. I saw a couple Samoan guys that were killing a guy almost in a parking lot. I called the police to help this guy, and next thing they turned on me, and I told Pat, Hawaii's crazy, let's get out of here. And it's not part of the United States. We got to go and finish our a honeymoon at another state in the Union, and next thing you know, we're on the plane going back to Las Vegas. We had 425 people at our wedding, even though we paid for our wedding, Pat and I. We had money left over on that trip. I lost everything, all of our wedding money. And it turned out I knew it cost $15 to take a cab from the casino we were staying to the airport. And I took it so deep that I only had $5 left. So here, if you can imagine, our plane's going to be ready to go, and we get into a cab. I only have $5, you know, and no credit card back then or anything good. And I remember watching the thing. We're in the desert now, and I'm watching the thing 480, 490, and finally I tell the driver, stop. And we're in the middle of nowhere. There's a female taxi driver, and she said, well, stop, what? And I told her, I just got $5, let us out. Well, by the grace of God, she took mercy on us and took us the rest of the way to the airport. But I think back on that, and I said, well, what a way to start a marriage. What a way to start a marriage. The first 2 years of our marriage, the businesses were still existing, but things were getting worse. You know, like I say, I tapped out all my resources, and finally my bottom came when I had nowhere else to borrow money. And my barber was a compulsive gambler like myself. He told me about this gentleman, and he was with the mafia, that I could take a mafia loan out. But I had to make sure I make the payments, you know, and that. Well, I was so desperate, I met with him and ended up taking a loan out with him. And I made my first few payments with him, and then I lied to my wife, Pat, and told her I was going to Los Angeles on business, and went to Vegas instead. And I left my payment. I said to my barber, will you give him my payment? And he had a payment he had to give to him at the same time. He said, oh, yeah, no problem. Well, make a long story short, he ended up taking my payment and gambling it at the local racetrack. So when he didn't get my payment, he went over to my house, and I had then been blessed with my first child, infant son, Brian, and he came to the house, and Pat had the screen door latch, but he said, you know, I'm a friend of Jerry's from the business. He, you know, came across like that, and he said, I hear you had an infant son. And Pat said, yeah, and he said, could I see him? So Pat thought, you know, he's a friend of mine. He went to the nursery and brought Brian out to the door, and with that, his first name was Frank, and Frank just said, when you talk to Jerry next, would you give him a message? And Pat said, yeah. He said, well, tell him that your son Brian has a beautifully shaped head. Later that day, I called from the hotel in Las Vegas and got that message from Pat, you know, that she had to visit her. It was kind of a funny message that he gave. Then I realized, you know, and I called the barber and realized, and I was so upset he blew the payment. But I remember, you know, I couldn't even like leave that hotel room. I was just like frozen, and there was a voice inside of me saying, how much further do you want to take this? Now you're really jeopardizing, you know, your family over this addiction and everything else. I flew back, and I'd like to say it was the last time I gambled, but I did go one more time to the racetrack out in San Mateo, California, trying to hit a trifecta to solve all my problems, but again, lost all my money. Got out to the car, and I remember, you know, I couldn't even turn the key over in the car, and just so desperate. But I remember just saying 8 words that changed my life. I said, God, I am so sick. Please help me. And you know, I didn't have a personal relationship with the Lord then. I heard about God, raised, you know, hearing about God and Jesus, but didn't know Him. You know, and even with all the guilt and shame, all the things I did to support my gambling, He couldn't really hear me. But He did hear my cry in that parking lot, and He delivered me to Gamblers Anonymous a couple days later, and there a man gave up his time for 2 hours after the meeting, and he had similar debts. Because now I have to share with you, I've written bad paper, I've written bad checks in Nevada, so I was really facing what I thought extradition back to the state and being arrested in that. So I had all that, plus you know, the credit cards, bankruptcies. I ended up having a double bankruptcy, you know, both business and personal because of the debt. It was just, you know, I was getting pink slips in the mail, like 15 or 20 every day. I knew it wasn't like I won anything. It was judgments and whatnot. So I went there, and God really used that program and the people in there. And day by day, I abstained from gambling. he helped me in talking with the mafia, and I was allowed some time, and finally got that loan paid off. I moved back here to Chicago and continued in the program. And it was 3 years later, after seeking God spiritually, that God strategically put Christians in the Gamblers Anonymous program. A couple couples that knew the Lord, that they shared Jesus Christ with me. And in September 19th, 1987, I made that decision to accept Christ in my life. Many things have changed in my life as a result of stopping gambling. Like I said, I made my last bet. It was April 4th of 1983, so it's over 28 years ago that I've been delivered and set free from gambling. A marriage, really looking back, when I stopped, the chances of it continuing was slim or none. But God is a God of miracles and a God of the impossible. I probably put Pat through almost a nervous breakdown in my life, but I thank God that she stuck with me. I was blessed with 2 more children, 2 girls. And God knew I needed them. One daughter, the second daughter was Katie. She, 5 years ago, she was on her way to school. She was up in Rockford studying to be a missionary in India. She had a call in her life, and she was killed. So she graduated, with the Lord. I'm just so thankful to have been her dad. Your pastor and Vicky came the night of the news. And as we heard that song, the Lord comforted in their darkest hours. They were kind of there. And we felt so much comfort from the moment of the news that night. And God has done remarkable things in 5 years that we even now have a family ministry that we're able to comfort others. Then I was blessed with another girl, Laura. She's a junior in high school. And such a blessing to me. All the things I thought I could get by gambling, I've got by not gambling. I've got a marriage, 30 years now. I have a wife that trusts me. Where I remember she used to tell me when she went to Hallmark when I was in the throes of my gambling for our anniversary or my birthday, she'd have to go and get these cards. And, she didn't feel it. She had to buy them and give them to me, but she didn't feel it, Now, I'm glad you could tell me after I got in for a while and got well. But it's great now to be able to feel that love and to have recovered really, and to see all that God has blessed me with. So again, I just thank you for the opportunity of sharing what Christ has done and how He's turned a life around. And again, my burden is for, as Ken said, for the youth of today. We're just seeing countless people, being targeted. You get these things when they get close to 21. They send these playbooks, sports bets, come to casinos.